show. We are in Melbourne, BackChat in Melbourne. I feel like we need a live band for this guest. Before we get there, you can find us on socials, BackChat_. hello@backchatpodcast.com.au is our email. Or you can find us on our website, backchatpodcast.com.au. Thanks to our supporters and sponsors, Whippersnapper, Shelter, Margaret River Roasting Co., Bluebet, and Leadable Cameras. Now that we are here, Kath Loughnan, welcome to BackChat.
Hello. God, I'm honoured to be the first Melbourne guest.
This is first cab off the rank. Yeah, I know. You junket. Yeah, that's actually that's a good description of what this is. Now, Kath, we're going to get straight into this. Not great on introductions here at BackChat. We just get straight into it.
I like it.
Ask the same question to every guest we have. Mm-hmm. We know what you do on the TV screen. We know you've had a great media career. We know you've done everything that probably needs to be done as a host.
You could
as
retire
a broadcaster.
Oh, you guys are buttering me up here. I'm nervous.
What's your greatest sporting achievement?
Greatest?
And it can't be on camera. So our question is, if you're an elite sports star, you can't pick your own sport. But for you, it can't be anything to do with broadcasting. I want to hear your sporting prowess.
I was actually a bit of a competitive swimmer back in the day.
Right.
So I'm going to say greatest achievement, and I hate talking about myself like this, but is probably semi-finals of the Oz Open Championships in the 200 free.
Yes.
200 free.
Freestyle?
I just
freestyle,
have to, freestyle.
Stroke of choice?
Yes, it was. 200 or 400 free were perhaps my pet events.
Like
but then I realised that I wasn't going to make the Olympics. And so I thought I'm going to park this little swimming dream. It's been great. And head over to the States and do a bit of college and embark on a career where I can make money.
Wow. So did you go to the States? Did you say?
Yeah. Went to Orange County, California.
Really?
And did 6 months there. And then got offered, just join the swim team as something to do because college is obviously so different to university in Australia where, I don't know about you guys, but I know there's a few Curtin University students here. But I just
Curtin alumni
yes,
meeting.
Yes, I know. I would go to my classes and leave straight away. I did not hang around Curtin. But in the States, you have to get involved in college. Like you live on campus. So I joined the swim team. They offered me a scholarship after the 6 months, but I was going travelling and stuff and then wanted to get my degree done. So staying in the States would have added more study, and I didn't want to study anymore, so I left.
All I can hear in my head, I'm listening, Kath, but
the
OC theme song.
Theme song.
Before I was going there, I had that on repeat.
Phantom
just to get
Planet,
in the
I think, was the band.
Oh, thank you. That is good. Very
Have
good.
you ever gone back and watched the OC?
No, but
it is so bad.
Really?
When you
Misha Barton.
Yeah.
I remember one of them was Ryan,
so
like the main
Seth.
guy. Seth. Yeah.
Sandy, remember Sandy? He was my favourite.
I never watched it.
But,
Did they just reboot it recently or something? Is there a new OC coming out?
I don't know, but
you're definitely over my back shoulder here today, Dan. We might have to reset how we're set up
right.
here, but I like
it's
this.
good. I can just throw little drive-bys at you.
So yeah, correct. That is good. So okay. Speaking about that, did your trophy make it over here?
No, I didn't want to break it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a
cricket
trophy. It's happy. Yeah, thanks for asking. I bowled 5 for 16 in a grand final.
Did you?
And so
How old were you?
12. It's under 12s, but it doesn't matter. You can't.
And you carry that trophy around with you.
Usually, yes, around his neck.
Usually sits on the set, and it's got the ball in the trophy. Like they took the game ball from that. So that's probably my greatest sporting achievement. Although we didn't win that game. I still did. I tried to carry the team. Your back can only carry so much weight.
Yeah. Sorry, was I meant to ask you your greatest sporting
achievement?
No, you weren't.
No, we just.
Very rude of me?
Dan just likes telling that story to the guests.
Mate,
basically.
you brought it up.
Oh, okay. Well, you told it, didn't you?
Now, tell her yours. While we're on it.
No, I was state champion under 9 hurdles.
Under 9 hurdles.
Or did you win any state championships? Yeah, very good too. The hurdles were literally this high. Like, it was just running and I had long legs, so it's just like.
Yeah, they always looked so much higher.
Correct. Yeah, hurdles are a hard race. Now, were you born in the UK?
No.
Okay, perfect. We need to just make sure that gets off the internet.
I think there's some funky stats about me online.
There was some
People
that says
think I'm born in May too. I was getting heaps of happy birthdays the other month, and I was like, it's not my birthday.
Not generally like a Wikipedia type thing here, but I saw that and I was like, I've got to ask.
No, but I do love the UK.
Yeah. So you are West Australian family.
Yes.
Decently big family. Couple of brothers, couple of sisters.
Yep.
Sporting family. Like what's
we're all pretty sporty, and like. Growing up, footy was on, the Tour de France was always on when that was on, cricket. So sport had no rules. So for example, you could always have the footy on, you could always have the cricket on, you could always go out for a run. You know, mum and dad were so supportive of getting involved in sport, and so naturally we all just were competitive kids, as you are in big families.
Do you? I always wonder this with like broadcasters. Do you grow up wanting to be on TV, hosting in media, or is it more like driven by like sport, like the love of?
Well, for me, it was driven by sport.
Yeah.
Because growing up, there were no women on footy broadcasts or anything like that. So I didn't see that as a dream job because it didn't really exist, in my opinion.
Yes.
For me, it was just, I loved drama. I loved English. Like I loved writing and performing, I guess, on stage at school sometimes. And someone just suggested you should do journalism. So I started studying that. But then had no real desire to do general news reporting. Like I thought, oh, how depressing. Like, and it's always negative stories, right? Someone's died, someone's...
COVID numbers.
Don't get me wrong, I'm still a journalist at heart. So sometimes when I see a big general news story, I'm like, oh, that would have been cool to work on that. Like, I don't know, royal wedding. I love the royals, like things like that. But then someone just said, well, you're so sporty, you should do sports journalism. And I was like, oh yeah, still... not really knowing where that could go, but it started more going into sport areas such as, I don't know, just trying to get up work experience at Fox Sports News or 6PR Sport. You know, I started going down into that territory and, started to find my feet.
So what's your professional journey been like? So you come out of uni, qualify. Do you work in Perth media? You work because you're West Australian.
I moved to Sydney pretty quickly. The last year of my degree, so I got back from college in the States, had one more semester to go, and I did a week of work experience at GWN. I did the funniest story. It was...
this is like country, regional...
Yes. Margaret River Roasting Co.
Great.
This is right in that region.
Love it.
I did a story. So the boss came up to me on the Monday. I was doing just a week of work experience. And she was like, well, you can make the most out of this week. So you float story ideas and you come to us with ideas. So I said, oh, okay, there is actually... And the Dockers this was 2013. So they were on their way to making the grand final.
Yes.
And I said, well, there's this guy in Margaret River who has hired a private jet to take more Dockers fans to Melbourne because flights were so expensive. So this guy was like, I'm going to get a plane.
Great.
Anyone who wants to come with me, come with me.
I think I remember that.
And it was called, no joke, the plane was called the Fokker 100. So I did this story about the Docker Fokker 100 and interviewed this guy.
God.
And I found this story the other week and I was going to show Mark Howard, my colleague at Fox. It was so cringe. Like, I'm like, I think one of the lines is, all aboard the Docker Fokker 100.
That's great.
And then the ending, I'm just like, Kath Loughnan in Margaret River for GWN News. Like, it was so green and raw and cringe. And,
do you know what the wonderful thing about this is? We're going to go and find that. I'm going to clip this into a social with it. Don't you worry about that.
And I got offered a job after that.
Very good.
GWN.
So the Docker Fokker made
the Docker
Kath
Fokker started my career. I didn't take the job. I ended up doing a week of work experience at Fox Sports News in Sydney, and then that's why I took that job instead and moved to Sydney.
Well, you've come a long way from the Docker Fokker there.
I've never told that story and I've always wanted to because I like to tell journalism students, like, you've got to start from the bottom and, going to regional towns and doing a bit of work experience there, or even, if I hadn't have got the job at Fox Sports News in Sydney, I probably would have taken that GWN job and done a couple of years in Bustleton or whatever. But I always like to tell students you're not going to get your dream job just like that. You've got to start from the bottom, and it's so rewarding when you do, and it's also the best way to go about it because you'll make mistakes and you'll do the cringe stories like the Docker Fokker 100 where you sound like a child. But it's good memories.
Sort of like me producing you early days, when I first got out of uni.
We should pull up some stuff.
If you're going to play the Docker Fokker 100, you got to pull up some early days Will Schofield.
I remember we did one. Remember we spoke to. He was great talent, but he just loved. He was a bit of a nerd. I'm a nerd, so I can call people nerds because I'm a nerd.
Oh, the TV guy.
Yeah. Just loved actual TVs.
Oh, okay.
Like televisions.
Oh, right, like
not shows.
The machinery, the mechanic. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
we just used to do some great interviews.
There's also
ABC Digital.
I also convinced Will to do a Christmas rap And so like we like laid a beat. He like recorded a rap. and we
Okay,
played
the
it.
rap needs to be inserted into this podcast, please.
I did forget about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Very good. Is it competitive? Is it cutthroat? What's the industry like? You know, coming from elite sport, that's what that is. It's cutthroat. It's competitive.
Yep.
It's, you know, you're fighting for your spot. Is it the same in media?
I guess it is, but I've never found it to be that competitive. And I say that because when I was swimming, my best friend was my main rival, and it was this consuming rivalry. Like
Wow.
she was so on par with me in terms of we're both gun swimmers, we're both good at the same subjects at school, we're best friends, and it was just a consuming friendship in a way because I was always competing against her. But it taught me a lesson of like, you can't do anything about what she's doing like that, you know, just control what you can control. And I think it's the same, that's really helped me going into the media game, is there's no point trying to be like Dennis Cometti or Bruce McVaney because they're already taken, they're done. And networks don't want two Bruces or two Dennises. They want someone new that brings something different to the table. So it is competitive, but you're not going to get anywhere if you're going to try to be like someone else because that's already done. Networks want variety in their commentary teams and on their channels. So you got to just stick to what you do best and what you offer. And so, yeah, no, I have never found it to be competitive because I've just kind of focused on what I'm doing.
Performance pressure.
Yeah.
I look at media, and because I've worked across sport and media, there's a lot of similarities between playing sport, highest level, and being in media, highest level. And one of them is the performance aspect because it's a live environment. You know, you make a mistake, everyone sees it. Is that pressure on? Like, do you feel pressure?
Yeah.
And
I
is
guess
that driven at all?
You get used to it, don't you, in terms of when you're playing. Like you get used to that pressure every weekend. But at the same time, I guess it's the pressure of, well, for example, when I started working on Test cricket for Fox Cricket, that felt like a high pressure environment because it's going out to the world where the world feed. So Fox have paid a lot of money for the rights. They pay a lot of money for hair and wardrobe and makeup, you know, to make everyone look good. There's so much work behind the scenes in terms of making it, you know, 4K Ultra HD. Like there's just so many parts to it. So when it finally all comes together and you're there on air, it's just the final piece of the puzzle that you're like, don't stuff this up. So many people have worked so hard to get this product to this point. So, yeah, there's definitely pressure, but if you're prepared and do your job properly, you'll be fine.
What's that preparation element like? For people that don't know what happens, they see you on TV, maybe, you know, it might be a 5-minute slot or it might be an hour slot, or whatever it is. What's the preparation element like for you in terms of both on-camera presence, but material that's coming out of your mouth, from your brain, out of your mouth? Is it big?
You know, I guess you can relate in terms of there's always different sorts of preparation compared for what you're doing. So you'd prepare differently for this podcast as to if you're doing a boundary game for Fox Footy.
Yeah.
For example, like I filled in for Jared on AFL 360 last week or the week before, I can't remember. And
you're also the first female host of that show, correct?
Yes, but I don't like to play the female card, but yes, I was.
Yeah, that is an interesting. We're going to come back on that. But that's,
okay.
Yeah.
Yep. In terms of preparation, so for that show, right, I'll definitely watch all 9 games. You're listening to every coach's press conference, interview around the games. This is, say, for the Monday 360 show. You have to have something to say about every game, team, coach, and most players because you're not doing the job justice if you don't. So that's a consuming show in terms of preparation because you just have to be across everything.
Yes.
You've got the hardcore footy fans watching that show, and if you don't know all the ins and outs of their team, you're going to cop it. So
I'd say that's really hard work as well. It sounds like, you just watch footy all weekend, but it's way beyond that. It's like you have to pay attention and know what's going on.
And most weekends I'll watch most games. Perhaps miss a half here or there, but for 360 I'll definitely go back. Like I went back and watched the North Geelong game. That was the weekend before that, and I knew, okay, North had been smashed by 112 points.
Yes.
And it's Sunday morning and I've got to watch that, and I wasn't very intrigued, but I was so glad I did because it's, for example, lazy journalism perhaps to look at that result and then go on a footy show and be like, oh, North was smashed, how bad are North, yada, yada, yada. But if you actually watch the game and watch it closely, like North had quite a promising first half. There was some really positive signs out of that. And then, you know, what you heard from David Noble halftime. My point is there was such a story to that game that if you just read a match report or watch a few highlights, you're not getting the full story and you're not doing North Melbourne or Geelong justice by talking about that game on a Monday 360 say. So I think it's just time of watching every game and looking at the stats, looking at individual players. I love listening to players and coaches. So I think after games, I think that's almost the most insightful interviews because they're in the heat at the moment in the game. So they kind of let their guard down and just be a bit more honest.
Charlie Kerner, shout out.
Yes, sorry. I don't mind the odd swear word. It's good.
Yeah, correct.
So, yeah, no. What was the question? Preparation. So, it's different for every job. Cricket's very different to footy. Cricket's a lot more numbers-based stats. And the history of series is very important when you're doing a test series. So, yeah, it's all very different. I do a lot of different shows and games and jobs for Fox. So, yeah. But you get your system down pat and away you go.
Media and broadcasters get to games earlier than players. I've learned that. Which I find crazy, but it shows it's such a big sort of wheel of things coming together to like pull the show off. Do you realise that? Like the preparation element is more for people that are actually broadcasting the show than the actual players themselves.
Yeah.
Like, is that fun? I just find
funny
it
when you compare
weird.
TV as well to radio. Radio, the amount of time like you spend at work, you're usually on air for the majority of that time. Television, there's so much time spent just preparing production meetings, hair and makeup, all that. Particularly like test days are long. Test days, you're getting there, like Isha Gu and I will get there for like 6 a.m. makeup. We're on air for an hour pre-game at 8 or an hour and a half pre-game at 8:30. Then you've got the whole test day. Then you got the post wrap up, and then you finally get. So yeah, that's
times 5.
A lot of the Test cricketers say, "I can't believe how early you guys get to the ground," because it's obviously a long day for all involved. Because Test match cricket is that, but they're exhausting days.
How do you even pay attention that whole time? Because you almost couldn't switch off, right? You'd have to know what's going on the entire day.
Yeah, you've got to be pretty switched on and just look after yourself. Like I always get to bed early, work out. I need to exercise in order to perform well. Otherwise, I just feel a bit lazy and behind the 8 ball. Yeah. So you just got to be a bit strict with your routine and make sure you're prepared and all that.
Like an athlete.
And correct. I don't know if it's surprising to people, but there are lots of similarities. Is it any, given the amount of work you've put in over the last however many years, 5-6 years, has there been any memorable gaffes? Any memorable?
Yeah.
It's got to be, right?
So there's one that I've mentioned on it because everyone always asks this question. And there's one there's a Daily Mail article about it. I said, I can't remember the players. 2 players were fighting for the final spot in the Australia Test 11. And I said farting. That was one of my first bulletins on Fox Sports News.
Perfect.
Other ones are just gaffes in my mind are early day interviews when you were green and raw and just couldn't really go with the flow of an interview. You had your pre-planned questions and you were nervous. And I do remember Ian Chappell talking about coaches and I can't remember the story at the time, but I asked him a question about a coach and he just went back with, I don't believe in coaches. And it just stumped me. I was like, okay. So those are gaffes you might like. I actually cringe more thinking back to those memories than the fighting one because I'm like, oh gosh, that was so awkward, Kath. Like, just ask him why he doesn't believe in coaches. Like, is that there like a dickhead?
Yeah, correct. Is that something like? Do you roll into an interview like that? Do you have 3 in your head that I'm gonna go this, this, and this?
Well, back then I did.
Yeah.
Whereas now I still do. Like if I'm coming up to you post going, okay, I'm going to ask Will Schofield about this, but I'm not so regimented, and I'm listening to your answers more. And if you say something a bit strange, I'm like, oh, wait, tell me more about that. But when you're starting out, you guys know what it's like. You're just nervous. You don't have the experience. So experience is key.
It's like if someone had a microphone under your mouth every day, I reckon there'd be some strange words coming out. So it's when you see people in the media say a word wrong. Like just think about how often you
and
speak.
Everyone's like, oh, you idiot.
I know.
Like, come on.
I know. That was like at the start, I always used to kick myself whenever I would stutter or not quite say a word right and I had to repeat myself or something. But then you think, well, that's how we all talk when we're at the pub. Like, you don't stutter a word and I go, oh, that's so embarrassing, start again. Like, you just push on. That's normal life. So that also comes with experience. If you're like, don't sweat that small stuff. Just if you stuff up, take the mickey. Like yesterday, I was doing halftime with Jack Riewoldt and Cam Mooney at the Hawks-Eagles game, and I said, we start with change room shots of like, West Coast down by 12, questions being asked, and then come on camera here with Cam Mooney, and I said it quite subtly, but I said it Jake Riewoldt, and then I looked at him and I just said, did I just call you Jake? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, hi, Jake, I'm Kath. Like, this was all on air. And everyone has a laugh and then you push on with the halftime highlights. But again, to my point, starting out in the industry, if I had have said that, I probably would have gone so awkward.
Flustered.
Like, sorry, Jack Riewoldt. Jack Riewoldt is next to me. Onto the highlights. Like, you're just awkward and green and raw.
Anyway, we're going to get back to the Docker Fokker story. I'm pretty sure you go.
I was going to say, it's hard when they don't give you much and you go in prepared for like these questions and then they just give you like a couple of words and then you're like, shit, I don't have anything. I remember interviewing someone at a Peel game and every question was like, I thought they were like open questions and it was like, like it was just one player who did not have any media whatsoever. They put him up and I remember being absolutely terrified because they're just like, if they're not playing ball with you, then it's just so awkward.
Yeah. It's different when they're young and nervous. You can't feel sorry for them. If it's an older, experienced person, you just politely go, can you just elaborate a little bit more on that? Polite way of saying, give me more. I have to say, I'm feeling very at home with all this WA flavour at the moment.
Shelter,
can bring it.
Whippersnapper, Margaret River roasting coat.
Then when you just said Peel, I was like, oh, Peel.
Do you miss home?
I do. I love home. I mean, I love Melbourne, but I think just the older you get, the more you appreciate WA and being from WA.
Could you do what you do from WA? Would there be opportunities in the media like there are here?
I don't think so, to be honest.
I don't think Fox Sports exists in WA at the moment, right?
We've got Pav on the ground there. But I don't think I would find it as satisfying given the variety in my job at the moment. And a lot of that variety comes from the fact that I'm based in Melbourne.
How hard is it speaking and talking and thinking with someone in your ear talking and speaking and thinking too?
Some days most days it feels easy because I'm used to it now. But there are some days when you're just having an off day and you feel like you're stuffing up and then there's a producer in your ear and you just want to go, shut up. The worst is when for example, if I'm in studio and we're crossing to Matthew Pavlich and Justin Longmuir at Optus, and a lot of the time producers will use that time to talk to you and say, okay, so after this we're going to go to that clearance differential graphic, ask or whatever. But if Pav's asked Justin Longmuir a really good question and perhaps a bit of a game-shaping question, like if they're going to tag someone or whatever, you really want to hear the answer, and so that's where it can get frustrating. But it's just the way it rolls. Like, you can't get mad at the producer; he's doing his job by telling you what's coming up next. But yeah, it's a juggle. When
you're in studio, the teleprompter. We had Nige Carmody in here doing some stuff with the Shelter Footy Cast. And he said he does work for racing.com and the whole first segment, 15-minute segment, the teleprompter was off the entire time, and he had no sneaky to talk back to the producer. So he just had to rely on the fact that he'd actually prepared and knew what he was meant to be talking about. Yeah. How much is being fed to you on a teleprompter? How much? It's just a lot of people don't see what you say. They just say you.
So when I started my career at Fox Sports News, it was all auto cue really, unless you're at the ground or at a training session doing a piece to camera, which is like 15 seconds. You just learn that off by heart. But now I don't do anything with auto cue, and I prefer that because you just let your mind go where it needs to go, and you listen to the conversations more. If you had a teleprompter like an auto cue, you kind of feel like you have to go by that. It's just different. For a footy broadcast, you just wouldn't use an auto cue.
Yes.
It's just it needs to be more off the cuff and conversational, and you just need to do your prep and know what you're talking about. For the only auto cue I do is AFL Tonight, because that's a news bulletin and that's more Fox Sports News.
Yes.
But for Fox Cricket, Fox Footy, no, we don't use auto cues. And if you're doing intros and all that, I'll just write it down on a piece of paper, and then I'm pretty good at learning that off by heart. For example, an intro to a broadcast where you're going, all eyes on the MCG, it's Hawthorn taking on West Coast, and you do your little opening spiel. I'll just write that down on a piece of paper, and then I'll just say it to myself a couple of times, and I know what I'm talking about. But in terms of preparation, back to preparation a little bit, I'll always do that for every game. So Wednesday, Thursdays, I'll usually go through all the games I've got, and I'll definitely always write an intro. And I'm a stickler for not using the same word close together. Right. So that's one of my bugbears, is when someone uses, for example...
It's a fantastic game, the MCG coming up. It's going to be a fantastic day.
Yeah, and they've... what a game for West Coast. They're on a 5-game winning streak. It's like, no, what a game for West Coast. They're on a 5-match winning streak. Like, don't use the same words. Always try find... And superstar player. He's a superstar player. He's a superstar. Like, no, not everyone's a superstar. And
best ever.
Yeah, just use different words, and I love the English language. So that's a nice part of the job for me. That, I don't know.
It is like quite telling when you hear people just ripping out the cliches, like great footy cliches. The amount of boundary riders and sorry.
Hey, don't knock it. Hey mate, don't come at the boundary riders, mate. And get you down there. So you go. Come on.
The amount of boundary riders that I've heard say it's a perfect day for footy down here. Just like
no doubt,
man.
No doubt. I've rolled that out.
Have something different up your sleeve, like you do it every week.
It's hard, and I spoke to Anthony Hudson about this the other day, because I think Hutto's the best caller in the business, and I was just asking him about his career, and I said, do you struggle sometimes to find variety in what you're saying? Like, you can get so stuck in the same routine of if you're doing the Sunday 110 game every week, here we go, Sunday afternoon football, the MCG, like you can get stuck saying the same things. And Hutto was just agreeing with me and saying, I really try to mix it up and not become stale, which is amazing for someone like him who's been calling the game for so long. It's one of the challenges of the job.
I'm keen to go back on the female element, right? So asked before, first female host. I mean, that is a factor. You say don't want to use the female card. Appreciate that, but it is what it was. As you said, growing up, there was no females in football. So, holistically and broadly, like how do you see that? Traditionally a male-dominated area and sport.
Yep.
What's your views on it? What was it like growing up? What's it been like actually being in the industry?
Yeah. So growing up, there were, the Caroline Wilsons and Kelly Underwoods, but just not many females at all. It's a hard balance, right, between celebrating women and women's achievements, but then also not taking it so far that you're pushing women to be in positions just because they're a female. No, get the best person for the job. And I'm also really careful of talking about this, because I know that for your Caroline Wilsons and Kelly Underwoods, it was really tough, and they copped a lot in order to make it easier for women like me to come along and have a career in sports journalism. So I'm so appreciative of those women, and Kelly Underwood is a legend. I love working with Kel. She has the best laugh, the most infectious laugh, and she's just, you get along with her like that. She's awesome. Caroline Wilson, I'd never met, and she got my number off someone after I'd filled in for Jared on 360 last year, and just sent me a text saying, awesome job this week. It was great to see you do that. Keep up the good work. And I really rated and respected that. Like, how nice is that to get my number off a stranger and send me that text?
Yeah.
So I can't speak more highly of those two women in particular. And thanks to them, it's now really normal to see people like myself, or if it's Sarah Jones or Chloe Malloy or Daisy Pearce, it's normal now, and we don't make such a big deal out of it. And I just hope that we can keep accelerating women's involvement in the game as we are, but we don't need to force it down people's throats and get to a point where women are getting certain jobs just because they're a woman. No, it's the best person for the job.
Yeah, that's a really good answer.
Right.
The AFLW stuff, the emergence and the growth of that game. I do a bit of commentary across AFLW. I think there's areas there that I agree with you, not forcing it, but I think having women commentators commentating the women's game makes sense.
Yep.
Just as it probably makes sense having male commentators commentate, and I'm talking about play-by-play stuff here, and like insights, and like I would like to see more AFLW players involved in the actual broadcast of the women's side of the game, because it is different.
Yeah,
it's different to watch and it's different to play. Like I actually speak to Mum about this. Right, Mum had never watched AFLW.
What's Mum's name?
Jan. Right,
Jan.
Loves her footy. Geelong fan her whole life. I get drafted at the end of 2006.
Oh, it would have broken her heart.
2007 premiership to Geelong. She was a West Coast fan in 2007.
Jan.
But she just loves her footy, right? And
Who does she go for now?
She
back to the
She
Cats.
sits in the Hickey stand. No, she doesn't. No, she'll kill me with that. Brownlow stand. About 4 rows back from the boundary, the interchange.
Yep.
And often wears West Coast scarves and stuff.
Does she?
She was literally. I remember playing at Cardinia Park for the first time, and there was just this sea of blue and white. Have you worked many games down there?
Yeah.
It's like Geelong,
It
like
is, yeah.
proper Geelong, sort of like Perth, right?
You
And
know whose home ground it is.
There's one person in the whole stand with West Coast on, it's Mum.
Mama
right?
Jan.
But she had never got into the AFLW stuff. She just, I don't know, whether it's traditional or whatever. And I started working the games, and I was like, Mum, just watch the games. Like, don't listen to me. She loves all my stuff, right? Anyway, I was like, just watch the games. They're enjoyable. And she now loves that it's different. I think if you accept the AFLW is different to watch, it's not the same as the men's game.
Yep.
And given that, I think it's a good opportunity to have female insights on it, because my insights are different. It is a different game.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have a question there, but it's more just like, wondering if you
I agree with you, and hopefully, we've had Chloe Malloy, part of Fox Sports News. We've got Ruby Schleicher has just started, so I think there are more AFLW players seeing that opportunity to get into commentary and media and taking advantage of it. So it will grow. But I also like when you hear, we've got a great up and coming caller at Fox called Ben Waterworth, and he commentates a lot of the women's games. And I have no issue if it's a man or woman calling the game, as I have no issue if it's a man or a woman calling a men's game. But I think, the brutal reality of television is that men's games still do rate a lot higher than women's games.
Yeah.
And so like any industry, when you've got a men's game, Geelong Carlton Saturday night at the MCG, which was actually a Channel 7 game rather than Fox, you put your best caller on that, because that's your highest rating product.
Yes.
And you pay a lot of money for the rights. You want your best people working on that game. And if it's a man or a woman, who cares? It's your best team.
yes.
And so I think if Channel 7 or whoever put 4 men on a broadcast because they think that's their best team, well, then that's what they think. But then I think Fox have the view, and I'm not speaking 7 or Fox, whoever, that audiences like variety, and there are a lot of women who watch men's footy, and I think they like seeing a Daisy Pearce or Sarah Jones or whoever it is. So it's a difficult one. I don't really know what I was saying there either, but
That's good. That's what this is for.
I think we'll see more and more AFLW players start to get involved in the media over the next 10 years. I mean, it was 5-6 years ago that AFLW didn't even exist, so it's come a long way. I think in 5-10 years we'll see a lot more AFLW players in media.
Also with the variety thing you have, I feel like every time I turn on the TV, it's the same, like 4 dudes that are on the teams, and so having a just different voice, someone that just looks different, does make it a big difference for me.
I guess, I'm pushing for the point that I was making before, best person for the job.
Yeah.
But then if I was running a channel, I also know the importance of catering to all your audience members, and people do like, and it adds a different dynamic when you've got a woman and 3 men compared to 4 men, say. Yeah. And I think it's a better dynamic. I think it's also important. I love what Eddie Betts brings to Fox Footy and how he can educate and teach us more about Indigenous culture, and he'll say some Indigenous words and I ask him what do they mean, like what's that, and so I think that's another important aspect to our coverage, because we know how many great Indigenous footballers there have been.
I was going to ask about sports coverage in general, and it's kind of footy as much as you work across cricket. It's sports media landscape's changing. I think the last 5 years especially, the variety aspect, but how people consume things. And then another part is the player-media relationship. And I've been lucky enough to do both. What about you with your interactions with players, with the way you've seen media grow with that element? Do you think it's getting better? Do you think it's worse? Experiences you've had with interactions with players?
Clubs are definitely more controlling now because they have their own media departments and whatnot. We had Harry Mackay on 360 Plus last Thursday night, and he left the studio, and all of us, so it was Jordan Lewis, Nick Rewalt and myself, and we all looked at each other and said, how nice is Harry Mackay? What a great bloke. And I think the main reason for that, and Geordie said it and I was thinking it, he used our names. It's such a simple thing, but Harry was just looking at all. Yeah, it's a good question, Kath. I did it. Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Constantly using our names throughout the interview. And so if I was to have any advice to a player, it's use journalist's name. Yes. And if you don't know the name, well, you've got a media manager there. Just ask your media manager, what's her name again? What's his name? It's such a simple thing, which just immediately changes the dynamic of an interview, because you as the journalist have more, I don't know if appreciation's the right word, but you instantly like them a little bit more because you're like, oh, that's very polite. Like, good on you.
Well, it's just how regular humans speak to one another.
It is. It's not, it becomes a conversation between two people rather than, an AFL player on this pedestal and this, journalist who's not on the same level, which can often feel like is the case sometimes, I think. But yeah, I think the player media, it's very controlled now through the clubs, I think, and also this politically correct world. People were just always scared of saying the wrong thing. Yeah. And all of a sudden going on their phone and seeing that they're trending because they said, I don't know, a swear word, or they said something that's not politically correct. Fighting. So everybody, yeah, exactly. So I think there's a lot of fear in players of stuffing up and saying the wrong thing.
Is that I agree. Do you think that's a bit of because of the vehicle of how shows, how things are filmed, or the actual content?
They can be clipped up, put on Twitter. They go viral within the space of seconds.
It's like some scenarios aren't comfortable to be in.
No.
You're like, we've got lighting and cameras here. You're used to it. Generally, this is a pretty comfortable thing because of the way we do it. It's relaxed. But if you walk into a TV station and a set, it can be intimidating.
Yeah,
like 20
exactly.
people around, and
I interviewed Jai Newcombe yesterday post-game, and I immediately thought he wouldn't have done many of these. He will be a bit nervous. I don't know what kind of talker he is. So I went up to him and I just asked him, how many post-game interviews have you done? He said, one before. And I said, don't worry, they're easy. Like, you'll be great. And he was a great talker, but probably was a little bit nervous. And so I just took that into account. I had a good little chat to him before we went on air, and he was fine. I guess that's an easier environment because we're in the middle of the G. They've just won, so he's in a good mood. But I knew he would be nervous because he obviously hasn't done many of these before, but he was great. So it's just trying to make their experience positive. I don't want to make I don't want to interview someone and then all of a sudden they're trending online because they've said something wrong, because that will reflect poorly on me. I don't want to make anyone cry. Like, people think journalists try to get you to cry on air and get this all-time great interview. I don't like. I'm awkward when people are crying. I don't want someone crying in front of me. So it's you want to say to players and coaches, I want this interview to go well because it's my work. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable or for you to be reflected. Portrayed poorly. So we're in it to make players and coaches look good.
And I guess if they go to back to the club and be like, oh man, try to avoid Kath at all costs, but then
I understand that some of them have probably had bad experiences with other networks or other journalists because I don't know. So you've got to take that into consideration too.
Have you had any or many situations where, sort of speaking on your values there, that a player has said something or something has happened, maybe not live, but maybe something that is going to be put together post, that you felt conflicted with actually putting into the public realm or space? No, if there was, you don't have to give a specific example, but have you had to make moral decisions around what
I don't think nothing sticks out to me. I did interview Peggy O'Neill once, the Richmond president, and she asked for something to be taken out, and I just said, no worries, of course. And it wasn't even anything controversial. In fact, it just makes her more lovable. It was a funny question I asked about, pick one player from your Richmond men's team and one player from your Richmond's female team to go on a road trip with, or something like that. Like, it was just a really playful question. And she answered it. We had a great laugh. And then she's gone away and called me later going, actually, I love them all. Can you not include that? I don't want any of them to find out that I picked one. So, of course, I took it out, and I will never name who she named because she's asked me never to speak of that again. But of course, if someone asks you to exclude something, I'm definitely going to, because I don't want to ruin their reputation or life.
You're doing something this year that's a bit, I think, different to some of the other stuff you've done through your career. It's certainly no Docker Fokker. I'm going to see how many times I can say that in this interview. Do you get best on ground?
Best on ground.
Best on ground. Russell Robertson, of course, the live band.
It's a tune that I'm just around the house on a Tuesday, and I'm like, best on ground.
So do I.
And then I do the voiceovers for the coming up, and I got to go in on a Thursday on Fox and film that. And because I sing the best on ground song, and I really emphasise the best, so I'm like, best on ground. And then I do this coming up VO, and I'm coming up on best on ground. And that actually said to me last week, Kath, can you just tone it down a bit on the best? You're putting too much emphasis
best
on the best.
It's like, just speak, Kath. Stop singing this song.
Okay, sorry. Coming up on best on ground.
Because that's a variety show. It's not a sports show. And you can say it's a sports show. It's not. It's variety, right? It's like I found the concept interesting because I haven't seen that in. I guess on a it's Fox Footy. We haven't seen that on a sports channel for a while.
No,
it has happened.
And
before.
the first episode was entirely different to what we're doing now. Like, it's changed a lot.
Like anything, right?
Yeah, because you're just starting out. You don't really know what it is, and it was very different for Fox Footy because all our shows are hardcore analysis shows. Except for Bounce, I guess, which is your family fun on a Sunday. So it is very different, and I was working the Saturday nights prior to Best on Ground, doing Saturday Stretch, which was, pretty serious. We'd go through, we'd have the odd laugh, but it was still, we'd talk about MRO incidents and injuries and
big moments of the round.
What this coach said in the post-match press conference. So it was a bit more serious. And so it's been different to adapt to Best on Ground, where it's like, I will go to a producer perhaps in the early weeks being like, Luke Beveridge said in the post, I think we should really discuss this. And it's like, no, we've got our skit. We've got our, so it's fun, it's light, it's bubbly. We're not going to get too heavy in footy chat. And it's been really refreshing. I've enjoyed it.
The element that I find, and it's just personal, because I don't think I'm funny, right, is the humour thing. I'm not at all. No, I'm not at all. And footy players, I don't think in general, are funny because they're footy players. They're not comedians. They're not presenters. They're footy players. And so you're on a panel with 3 footy players. You got Mark Howard who's driving it, and yourself. I don't know if you're funny or not, but is that hard? No, seriously, is that hard? Well, no, you're not trying to be funny when you're broadcasting on Fox Footy or Fox Cricket. You're just trying to broadcast. Whereas I think there's an expectation that there's some humour in
Yeah.
Is that hard?
I don't think I'm that funny. I would say I'm more cheeky. Like,
Yes.
I don't mind saying the odd inappropriate thing.
Do you have jokes being written for you? Do you have material being written for you?
No, not really. No. The skits are perhaps the only things that are written and you've got to say the lines.
What's that like? Sitting around, what are we going to, we've sort of worked across ones like that. We sit around, throw ideas around.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Well, we don't really have too much of a say. It's more the two comedian writers and those guys just come up to you and say, "Oh, we've
Brownie
got
wants
this
you to
skit.
scull a litre of milk.
Yeah. Brownie has, he's impressed me this year because he's such a showman, and he's one of those guys, and you probably don't see it watching the show, but if Howie is ever in trouble and needs someone to feel or just to chime in a bit, Brownie's always that guy. He can really read the play well and just has such a lovable nature about him that anything he says, I mean, he cracked a really lame joke on Saturday night, but just his delivery and his warmth made it funny.
You've made me think about a Jonathan Brown moment that's never been told.
Oh, tell me.
So Jack Redden married in South Australia to his beautiful wife Amy. They got 3 kids together. Great people. Jonathan Brown was there. Jack Redden played in Brisbane with Jonathan Brown, and Brownie was there, which I kind of didn't think about going to the wedding. There'd be, a lot of Brisbane representation, but of course it would. I mean, it's part of Jack's life. Anyway, so we did the wedding, was out in the hills somewhere, and we had to come back into town for the post-match celebrations effectively. And the bus was fine, but I don't think there was drinks on there. We weren't allowed drinks or something. And so it was a decent bus ride. And so we'd been on there for 20 minutes, and I think, like you said, Brownie had read the room that we needed a bit of entertainment. Yeah. So Brownie got on the microphone and started he was doing chants. He was told this like a footy trip story, but it was like very appropriate. It wasn't like some old footy player getting on the mic telling some inappropriate. It was hilarious. Yeah. Like every single person on the bus got off and was patting him on the back. Like, it's Jonathan Brown. Like, how good is this? And it was just like hilarious that like most, big name, big star football would just want to sit and just not be in the spotlight, whereas Brownie's grab the mic off the bus driver, like, give it here, mate. Like, let me tell you a few stories.
Yeah, he can lift a room.
Oh, geez, that was good.
But he's also really humble, and that's why he's so lovable, I think, as well. He doesn't think he's this, that he needs to command the room and attention all the time. He just steps in when he needs to, and that he really... Oh, this is a cliche, but I was just going to say he really plays his role on Best of Round. That's such a cliche.
Credit to the boys, yeah.
Yeah, week in, week out.
How so, Kath?
Are we going here?
Yeah.
How so?
Definitely.
We're going here, absolutely. Okay. We're covering this.
Okay.
How so, Suma? Right, this is a moment of infamy, really. And coincidentally, it's actually now my slot on AFL Tonight, effectively.
Yes.
It was on...
You replaced Suma.
Well, I don't know. You said that, not me. There was a moment, we talk about gaffes, we talk about things that have happened on air, and I'm not going to sit here and pay anyone out. I just want to know a bit of insight of how all of that went down. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it'll be clipped together for this as well. But how so, Suma? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Can I just start by saying I love Peter Sumich, and he's such a great bloke.
Yes.
And I actually ran into him after that happened at Crown with his family. We had a nice chat. We didn't talk about it, but he's I
was going to ask, have you spoken to him
because
about it?
we moved on. I think maybe next time I see him we'll have a laugh about it. But he was great, and I really enjoyed, because you would know when you do AFL Tonight, I call you the day of and we talk about what we're going to talk about that night on air.
Well, that's why we're sitting here, because I've been really impressed with, you don't ring me for it's a 5-minute slot. You'd think that Kath would call me like, these are the questions. Like, I've spoken to you for like half an hour at a time.
Yeah, I know.
Kath's probably like, just shut up, mate.
No, I love it because we get distracted and I start picking your brain about things.
Yeah.
And I did the same with Sumich. And so I really liked getting to know him and then liked chatting to him and doing those interviews. But this one interview in particular, so he had, like you and I, we had spoken that day for a good 20 minutes or so, and he always came to the party with ideas and stuff, which I always really rate and respect. And he said, "Okay, and we'll talk about Fremantle, and I'll talk about their game plan because I think they could make a few tweaks or something."
Yes.
I think this is correct. Yeah, tinker. And I said, "No worries." So, like, he knew the questions that were coming, and he was totally prepared. The problem with the AFL Tonight setup is there's a delay with guests. So there's and which is why I said to you when we started with AFL Tonight, I was like, don't really try to do the banter thing because it's just awkward. There's a delay and it will come across lame on air. Anyway,
wait a while, Western Australia.
yeah, so far
Coming
away.
across the cables.
So he had, we'd gone through the first few questions and we got to the Freo game plan one. And I think from memory, he gave me his answer and I was just naturally intrigued to know more. Yes. And so I said, how so? But then he couldn't really hear me. I think there were some technical issues. And I've just gone again with the question. If it was any other team, I probably would have just stopped and pushed on and I don't know what I would have done. But because it was Fremantle, I was a little bit more intrigued.
You're a Fremantle fan.
And yeah, exactly. And so I just kept going, knowing there's a delay too. So I was like, this is going to come across as really lame, like for the audience, but I just want to know. And so I kept going. And then his line was dropping out and then he could hear me. And anyway, I actually got off air from that interview being like, oh, that would have been awkward, but whatever, nothing you can do about it now. Yes. Went home and then, I don't know, had dinner and then just checked my phone and I was like, what has happened here? What did I say? Just thinking worst case scenario, like, did I swear? Did I do something? And then I've watched it back and I'm like, oh no. And I felt so bad for Suma because again, what I was saying before, I want people to walk away from interviews with me feeling good about themselves and like they've done a good job and that, no harm's been done and carry on with your life. But that obviously blew up on social media and became a bit of a joke. And I still get people tweeting me sometimes. How so? Oh, gosh.
That's great.
Yes, I agree with you. It's a bloody hard job to do when you're. Again, people see what they see on TV. They see Suma sitting there. It looks like, well, of course he can hear what's going on. But there's a delay. Maybe he doesn't hear it the first time. Maybe he does the second time. Maybe he's trying to come up with his answer. But there's a lot going on. There's just a lot more going on. So I have some empathy for it, but it is a very funny.
I've got a theory. I'm just going to say it. You guys, have Suma and you know him. I don't. I fully reckon he heard it and just didn't have an answer. Because
can we confirm or deny
because
that?
And look, you don't have to say whether that's I legitimately reckon he heard it and he was like, I don't really have an answer and played because I've seen people do that and I'm pretty sure I've done that before. And you're just pretending like you can't hear and you just hope that they're like, just hurry up, stop. And then you persist. So you're like, how so?
I know. And if we were talking about Geelong or Port Adelaide, I probably would have just been like, you know what? Thanks, Suma, for your time. I think we've got some technical difficulties. See you next week. Because it was free. I was like, no, tell me.
You asked 4 times. How so?
Please, Kath, move on.
Go, Kath.
And then you laughed as well. There's just so much. There's so
much going on.
Yeah, but like anything in life, people make mistakes. And if you can have a laugh about it, not be too filthy on it, I think it's good.
Props to him to just committing to, if that was the bit that he knew that he could hear and he just didn't have an answer, he just steadfast.
Yeah, okay, I rate that. That's a good way to look at it. Now, a couple more questions and we're finishing up. Future aspirations. Where do you...
Great question.
What do you want to be Prime Minister one day?
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
No,
you could be Prime Minister. I'm sorry.
I can't really see myself in Canberra, to be honest.
That's more the last part, but politician, right?
Yeah.
You don't seem like a politician, Kath.
Thank you. I love my job at the moment, really love my job, and I know I'm really lucky to have the job I do. I also just love my life in Melbourne. I've got my best friends from Perth who have all moved to Melbourne for their own reasons and careers, so I've got it pretty good at the moment. But I remember listening to an interview Sam Armitage did after she quit Sunrise, and she said, are you meant to do the same thing your entire life? I don't think so. Isn't the point of life to evolve? And I really related to that. And some people are happy to do the same thing their entire life and that's their passion and good on them. But I don't see media as the be-all and end-all. I really do love my job at the moment, but I wouldn't rule out going overseas, trying something else. I have other passions and interests. I love activewear. I love cricket as well, and I love what Sky Cricket do over in the UK. So I don't know what the future looks like, but I'm very open to perhaps trying something else one day, or trying, maybe staying in sports media but going overseas, or something like that. But I'm just going to, at the moment, I love my life. I love my setup. I'm very happy. So I'm going to keep going on.
Could you go back? Well, not back, but could you go to like traditional journalism? Could you see yourself doing that?
No.
No more Fokker stories?
No more Fokker stories.
The Frio Fokker.
I've just
So
started
good.
radio with Triple M, and I really love radio.
Have you? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've just got into radio,
Awesome.
and that's almost given me a bit of a new lease on life. I really enjoy that. I love podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
BackChat, obviously top of that list.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I follow that show. I get
Thank
the notifications. So I do...
Don't laugh, Charlie.
Charlie's having a good laugh.
Was that
Charlie.
funny, Charlie? Thanks. I am funny. You know, before when you were like, are you funny? Are you not? I am.
Very good.
No, so maybe podcast, something I might delve into. I don't know, but I do like changing it up and challenging myself in different ways, and radio's given me a bit of a new challenge.
Radio is fun.
It is.
There are aspects of, I used to work in radio, and there is aspects of it that's super fun. Like we had some good times together. You did a rap on it. Like,
you had some good times
That
with me.
yeah, I had some good times with you.
That rap has to be inserted into this podcast.
Yeah, it could be like the
Somehow.
Louis Theroux thing. Whatever that stupid thing is.
My money don't jiggle.
Yeah, there you go. Hey.
It falls.
It actually probably
Like
is
the
on the
way you
same
wiggle,
level.
wiggle.
It was very good from memory. Very good.
I
may
spent-
not-
Don't chalk it up, because he's going to dig it up.
No, it was actually very good.
We spent way too long on that.
Yeah.
I'll have to break into the ABC.
I was going to say we used the full ABC budget to build it. $0. What's something? Last question. What's something people don't know about your job? What's something that people would not know? They watch you. What is something interesting that you think people wouldn't know about what you do? Whether it be good, whether it be bad, challenges, positives.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah. Question
I
without
think
notice.
there are some
Like every question.
interviews. There are some interviews where you, particularly the longer form interviews, where say I've arranged to sit down with Will Schofield for 30 minutes,
Yes.
and you ask questions, and the player thinks you know nothing, but secretly you know most answers to most questions, and you're just leading them into it, because that's back to preparation. You don't go into interviews not knowing. It's all pretty staged when you think about it, but there will always be elements of surprise when you're doing an interview, because as prepared as you can be, there will always be something you don't know, and perhaps you think they're going to say something about a particular topic and then they surprise you with a different opinion. But I think perhaps what people don't know is the amount of preparation you do and research that you generally know a lot of the answers coming your way. That was a kind of boring answer to that question, though.
Oh, that's good. I like it.
Was there? I'm trying to think of something like else behind the scenes. Like, it takes me an hour in makeup. Does that surprise you? But there are certainly, as you're now starting to learn, Will, there's a lot that goes into television and broadcast and production. So
Yes.
it's not just rocking up and
Smoke and mirrors.
grabbing the mic and
Smoking mirrors.
talking.
Travis Cloak, smoking mirrors behind. Yeah. Do we know that one? Do we know the Travis Cloak
Yes.
ultimate gaff? Smoking mirrors hiding behind doors and closets and hallways. Ever heard it?
No.
Right. He just butchered a classic cliche,
Yeah.
molded four together, and spat it out. It was very good.
My friends and I do laugh about that when you go to say one of those cliches, like, oh, you can lead a horse to water, but then you don't know the second half to it. You're just like
Yeah,
waiting for
and-
someone
but you
else
can
to finish
ride
it.
it on
The
a
fish
Tuesday.
feed in the water at the same time.
Yeah.
I do that quite a lot. I just look it down. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I always revert to a cliche when I'm trying to wrap up a conversation. I'm like, yeah, well,
Anyways.
another day, another dollar.
Another day, another dollar.
Holy shit. All right.
The sun will come up tomorrow.
You've got one more segment to finish here, and I need you to sign off with your best cliche. So just put that in the back of your mind. Social media. I know that's what you're here for. Social media. That's right. Not social. Oh, yeah.
Social media,
Yeah, that's what we like to
good.
hear. Yeah, it's very
By
good.
the way,
isn't it?
what's your nickname? What do people call you?
Don't you know the answer to every question?
No,
Didn't
I
you
don't.
say
know
it?
this one.
Didn't you just
Scully?
Scully? Our dad was always Scully. Scuzzer was one.
Scuzzer.
Yeah, Scuzzer. So at West Coast went through a period where Pat McGinnity was there, and he everything was Uzza. So Scuzzo got thrown in, and that's probably most common now.
Yeah. West Aussies, we always add an O to everything. Very O, righto.
Yeah. Are you Catho?
Do you know what? Hutto calls me Catho because I call him Hutto, obviously. He's the only one that calls me Catho.
Oh, we love Hutto. That's great.
Yeah. Hutto's
Social
great.
media. You're taking up too much time here, Kath. This is a great segment. This is just
a polite way of saying shut up, Kath.
No, you just don't get in the way of social media. It's one of the great podcasting segments of all time. Been running for about 10 years now, where we get the people to ask you the questions. You've heard it from Dan and I. Now it's the people's turn. It's sort of like Judge Judy, the people's court. Judge Judy.
Oh, the people are real, the cases are real, the decisions are final.
Thank you very much. Social media, DX. You've rolled that off so well.
The cases are real. The people are real. The decisions are final.
Do you know what? That reminds me when you chuck a sickie at school and you would sit at home and watch Ready, Steady, Cook and Judge Judy.
Is it the capsicums or the tomatoes?
That was such a bad show. But
horrible.
It was always when you were sick, you would watch Ready, Steady, Cook.
That's what Ready, Steady, Cook and... No, actually, I'm not going to say that. Social media, DXHam1308.
Kath, how do you think you'd go playing in the AFLW
These are
League?
legitimate questions from listeners. Oh, okay.
Hey,
on Instagram.
There's real stuff in here. This is real.
Do you need me to repeat
Do you ever
the question?
fake it?
No.
And add in your own questions?
Shut up, Kath. Shut up, Kath.
You do. You do.
No, but
Sorry.
not for social media, but we have created some emails. Not on this show. I'm just being honest. Dan's looking at me like, don't lift the veil. Do not.
We've actually never had a person respond to any of our posts. We make them all up, okay?
Social media is real. Every one of these people is real.
Kath, how do you think you'd go playing in the AFLW League?
Horrendously. I'm a little bit uncoordinated.
Okay.
So I'm going to say I'm pretty good at running and swimming and my endurance. But in terms of hand-eye coordination, I'm pretty average.
Put you out in a far wing and just get you running up and down.
Yeah.
Gavro_543.
Did you keep the hairbrush that Robbo offered you?
Good question. I did. I just sanitised the shit out of it.
What is this?
Yeah, I'm not what it is.
So when I filled in for Jared the other week on 360, I always have a hairbrush on set with me because, my hair gets a bit knotty.
Same.
Got to make it look fluffy on air.
Yes.
And anyway, so I had the brush there and Robbo would just make a joke each night like, oh, thanks for bringing my hairbrush down as just a joke. Anyway, the last show on the Wednesday, he decided just to get it whilst we were on air and give my hair a bit of a brush, and then he started using it on his
He flies just a bit loose sometimes, doesn't he, Robbo?
But that's what I love about him. That's why I love working with him, because you don't know what you're going to get.
It's like the run sheet's here and he's like, I don't care about that.
It makes me feel more relaxed on air. I love it.
That's good. Gus Benz 0. I think Gus Benson with a 0. Don't mind it, Gus.
Do you prefer commentating AFL or BBL?
Broadcasting, commentating?
Yeah. I'm not a play-by-play
or cricket.
But working on the sports. Everyone always asks this, what do you prefer, AFL, cricket? They're entirely different in terms of the job involved. But for me, AFL's childhood. It's going to footy. Cricket was still a bit child, but I struggle answering this question. I love doing footy in the winter, cricket in the summer. And when it comes to the end of the summer, I'm dying for footy to start. And then when footy, that mid-season lull, you're thinking, I wish it was summer and cricket.
Yep.
So
you're going to have to give us a final answer, Kath.
Yeah, I'm really sitting on the fence, aren't I? AFL.
What about when Freo are playing? How do you go with that?
You become very neutral when you start working in the media. But I think if they were to make a grand final, I would turn fangirl and get very nervous.
Byron.Porter.
Is flag mantle real?
I cannot believe how much this is taken off.
Correct. I put it into the national space. I did not create that.
Oh, who created it?
That was with Kath Loughnan.
Yes.
They're going to hate me here because they listen to this show, but there's the Flag Mantle pod in Perth. They've been running it for a little while, I believe. But
there's a couple of people that
we have some reciprocal rights.
Right.
We do have a gift for you in that.
Everyone thinks you started it.
I know. I think that's your fault and Fox Footy's fault because it was a bit of...
All right. I'll take the blame.
Yes, but reciprocal rights.
You spread it across the...
Yeah.
Can you believe, though, that it's
road
become
is.
such a thing? And
It's great.
To the point where Justin Longmuir got a little bit angry about it the other week because he was like, hang on, let's not get carried away.
He's not going to want to see our merch that we sell, flag mantle merch.
You don't have merch.
We do, and we've got something for you today.
Stop it.
Yeah, flag mantle merch. It's just
so
it's just not with us right now, but we have a gift for you.
Okay.
And it may or may not be our flag mantle merch. That's correct.
that.
So is it real?
Well,
Can Fremantle win the premiership
of course they can.
this year?
I am amazed at their progress from last season to this season. It's that hard jump of being a middle table team into a top 4 team, and they've done it so far this year.
Yeah.
I am intrigued to see how the year unfolds.
Instead of can they, will they win the flag this year?
Yes
Not
or no,
sure.
please, broadcaster.
No, yes or no?
I'm not sure. It's round 19. There's still a lot of footy to be
Oh,
played.
yuck.
I know.
That was fun.
How so?
Well,
How so, Kath?
there's a thing called time, Will, and right now it is July.
You shouldn't have given me the. Sorry, I can't hear you.
I don't want to jinx anything.
It's so
They've
good.
done so well to this point.
Yeah, but if you say yes and they win, you look like a hero.
Yeah, I know, but
Isn't that better?
I'm not about
This is smart.
bold. Can we
Okay.
next question?
Yes, very good.
Question.
I would like to know that _Jaden's answer.
Which best on-ground host is more into it when watching their own AFL team, and who's the most calm?
But in terms of when they're watching the footy,
Yeah.
Bucks is most calm. And I would say Brownie gets most into it.
And Brisbane?
With Brisbane, yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
Love that.
But then Rui's very on par when it comes to St Kilda.
Yes.
Yeah, so no, Bucks is definitely the most calm.
Yep. There's no who was the
You're not going to cheer for Collingwood, I mean. And he's not cheering for Brisbane probably either. I don't know.
who was the Origin commentator that was
Thurston.
No,
Oh,
Andrew Johns.
Andrew
Yeah,
Johns.
yeah. Just
I
Livid.
loved that. I thought that was
Livid.
great.
He must have been copying it from the crowd. He was like emotional. Like,
What did he
so-
say at the end?
we have
We had to listen to your shit for
No,
12
yeah, we had
months.
to put up with the rest of this bullshit for the next 12 months. And then just stop talking and was like deadpanning the camera.
But wasn't that great TV?
Yeah, it was good.
How much better than the generic vanilla line?
Yeah,
He
we'll
spoke-
come back in 12 months' time. We're going to
Exactly.
try and beat them again.
I
I
thought
think
it
he
was
spoke
brilliant.
a couple of days later, and he got really teary about it. He was like, "The jersey just
unbelievable.
means that
That's the
much
best
to
part
me."
about Origin is
Yeah.
the hatred and the rivalry.
Liv_Floro.
I'm just going to read it as it's written. How does she
Thanks.
pull up with the fellas? I feel like it would be enough to drive anyone insane. How does she put up with the fellas, not pull up with the fellas? How does she put
with
up
my
with them?
colleagues?
Yeah,
I
Liv's
love
a
my
big...
colleagues. I love them. They're all...
There's a lot of banter. Which is
There's
great.
so much banter. I mean, think about it. We get paid to go and watch the footy and to talk footy. It's the guys are awesome, and they're such good. They're gentlemen to work with too. They're always looking out for me. So I think it's a classic case of people get ideas of what people like watching them on television shows, but then when you see them behind the scenes,
Yeah.
people don't see Brownie opening the door for me or Howie asking me if I need water, whatever it is. Like, they're all just absolute gentlemen and are really good to all the women at Fox Footy. So
That's something people wouldn't know about your job. I asked you that question before and you're like, oh, that's not very interesting. That's interesting. People don't know that stuff about... They just see what's on camera and, ladsy stories because it's kind of
like when people go, oh, typical AFL footballer. It's like, what do you mean by that? They're all so different. And it's like when people say, oh, the media, they never go... You can't classify everyone as the media.
Yes.
How someone
NSM, man.
interviews a player is very different to say how I interview a player. So I don't like when people use those generic, oh, the media, oh, AFL players. Like, everyone's very different.
Vic71 Lian. What?
No, it's just interesting. How does she, a Freo fan... how are you a Freo fan? Are you from there?
Daddy's little girl. Dad
Yes.
jumped on board Freo when they began.
Off West Coast on the
And
Fremantle? Was he like a waffle?
He wasn't a hardcore West Coast fan, but Dad owned a lot of pubs and he owned a Hilton Tavern, and at the time when Freo started and just thought, and he always loved Freo, the place. And so he thought, I'm going to jump on board this new team. And he would go to the Dockers games every fortnight. He had a membership with as did my brother. And then I was just, daddy's little girl wanted to do everything with him. So I was like, why can't I come? And I started
You need to get back. You need to get back over to the West because it's Charlie's a Freo supporter and it's going a bit crazy over in the West.
The lid is off. No, it's not.
Flag
We're
medal.
keeping the lid on.
Candace Spag, 2 questions left. You've been incredibly generous with your time, Kath. Thank you.
How long do you think it will be until a woman will be a senior coach in the AFL?
Oh, good question. Good question. It's hard to put a time frame on it, but it will be awesome to see when it does happen. And then again, I'm reiterating my point of you want a woman in the job because she's the best person for the job. So I don't think it will come as much of a surprise when it does happen because that person will be the best person for the job. So you see all these scholarships, internships. I'm not sure that the program they've got where Daisy Pearce is
At Geelong.
At Geelong.
Is that right? Yeah.
Erin Phillips, I think, might have one. I can't remember
Yeah, she does,
exactly
and
all
I
the
can't
players
remember.
involved. Lauren Arnell. So the seeds are being sown and these girls are getting amazing opportunity and experience. You've got to want to do it as well. So clearly Daisy Pearce wants to go down that path and Lauren Arnell but they need time. They need to get those flying hours and get the experience. And so...
If I can add to your answer, from a player's point of view, I think people think it'll be a big deal when there's a women coach, head coach. I don't know if there's assistant coaches. From a player's point of view, assistant coaches, man, lady, whatever it is, assistant coaches are relationship people. And yes, there's some strategy and skill element, but assistant coaches, you're actually closer to the assistant coaches than you are the head coach. And so I think women in that role could actually do it better than men. Talking about people best for the job, like you would not blink as a player. You know,
Really?
I don't think so anyway.
Do you know, it's like women add a different dynamic. So what we were talking about before with commentary teams, sometimes when I interview a footy player, they might feel a sense of openness and that they can let their emotions out a little bit because I think men usually do when they're talking to their partners or mums or, you know.
And females get it and blokes don't, basically.
Whereas if a Matthew Pavlich is to walk up to you, you're perhaps like, oh no, that's Matthew Pavlich. He was one of the toughest footballers. I can't cry in front of him or I can't let my emotions out. So it's probably the same with an assistant coach. Players might feel a bit more open and be able to, I don't know, relate to the female coach a bit more in other aspects of the pressures of being an athlete. But do you think, could you see a female senior coach anytime soon?
We asked the questions here, Kath. But
how so?
I appreciate it. Senior coach, head coach, I think is longer off than assistant coaches.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if the next year there was this, is there assistant coach? I don't think there is. But just as a player, that's the progression. You're not gonna go, I don't think, from maybe head coach and AFLW side, there's a few of those, to head coach. I think you'll have to come back through assistant coaching, only because of experience, not because of men or women.
And they would want that too.
Absolutely.
You know, if a Daisy Pearce or someone has the grand plan of being a senior coach of a men's team, they would know that's a fair way down the track because they need more experience.
Almost all male senior coaches right now have been through the assistant coaching program because that's how you learn. That's how you connect with players. That's why the connection element for players is, I think, the most important element. Yes, there's game plan stuff, yes, but that's just watching footage. That's just, you can do that. It doesn't matter if you're a man or lady. It's just time. It's just preparation.
Yeah.
You don't have to have per se the knowledge. Yes, it's important to have done it or to been in that experience. That helps. But if you're a good preparer, you have you're intelligent. That being an assistant coach, I don't think is too far of a stretch. Last one, Cameron. Okay.
No, I was going to say also, if you went too prematurely with it, you'd set someone up to fail.
Yeah,
going straight to head coach. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and correct. It's like when you put an assistant into a senior coaching position when someone gets sacked.
Michael Voss springs to mind there. He was going to be an assistant coach at West Coast. He did. I remember it vividly. Breakfast event, and he spoke as the midfield coach. And then during that week, Brisbane approached him for the head coaching role. So he'd signed with West Coast, and then he went straight to Brisbane, and it failed because he hadn't had that experience. And then he goes away. He clearly is an assistant coach across a couple of clubs, and then comes into Carlton, and he's ready.
Yeah,
because he's done the connection stuff, which
And thank goodness he's been given a second chance because,
correct.
yeah, industry.
See what he's done.
Like that.
Cameron BW. This is a nice one to end on.
West is best, right, Kath?
Correct. I love WA, and as I said before, the older you get, the more you appreciate it. Beautiful part of the world. We've got it so good. I think West Aussies are nice, down-to-earth people as well. So yes, West is certainly best.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on BackChat, Kath. We appreciate your time. You've been incredibly generous. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on.
No worries. West Coast. I mean, the West Coast, not the Eagles, just the West Coast.
Oh,
this is
doesn't that annoy you when people say the West Coast?
West Coast.
Drop the the. It's
Correct.
just West Coast.
West Coast. This is a West Coast podcast. BackChat _. I know you follow us, Kath. I don't know if you do, but you should. Hello at BackChat Podcast. You can send in some emails if you want. Hello at backchatpodcast.com.au. A big thanks to all our Patreons, our patrons. We love you. I know I stuff it up every time.
Every time.
You support us. We're going to support you. Get over there for some discounts to our partners. Whippersnapper Whiskey, Blue Bet, Margaret River Roasting Co., Shelter, and Leadable Cameras. Backchatpodcast.com.au. We're done, Kath. Bye-bye. Oh, I didn't get your cliche. Have you turned it off?
Oh, I was going to say,
I didn't.
see ya, wouldn't want to be ya.
That's good.
That's staying in there, by the way.